I had so much fun painting my last skateboard that I thought I'd do another one. But for this deck, we're using new mediums, more challenging techniques, and we're going way bigger. Let's custom paint a longboard today on Kat Liepins Art. I bought this longboard on Amazon.
Hi.
Now you can see that the board arrived with a glossy varnish finish, and we're gonna have to sand this off in order for the primer and the paint to adhere to the board properly. So let's get outside and get to sanding. Since I work with fluorescent acrylic paints, which are semi-translucent, I need my background to be white so that the colors show properly. So we've picked a super bright white spray paint to prime our board. And now that our deck is primed, we're gonna brush on a coat of matte medium so that our paint job will adhere permanently. A single thin coat is all we're gonna need, and we'll let it dry overnight while we move on to creating the concept for our deck design. If you were wondering how we'll transfer the digital sketch from iPad to skate deck, we're going to use a projector. Not having to freehand your sketch a second time is a huge time saver. Let's do this. Some artists like to tone or tint their backgrounds before they start painting. Since I use fluorescent acrylic paints, which are semi-translucent, I need my background to be bright white so that the colors show properly. And for this painting process, I'm going to start by blocking in all of the colors in the foreground and complete my black outline before getting to my background. As I noted earlier, this is a little bit different than how I did my previous board, so if you'd like to see how that one went, go ahead and watch my other video. But let's get painting. We're gonna start by mixing our colors to match the palette that we've already defined in Procreate. let's pull this together with some crispy black outlines. I can hardly wait to see how this goes. Outlining is complete. I don't know about you guys, but I think that these black outlines really make the piece pop. I digress. Let's get to talking about the background gradient. For my last custom skateboard, I painstakingly blended the gradient by hand using a dry brush technique. What you didn't see in the behind the scenes in that video was how frustrating and slow that process was. I honestly wanted to quit and throw that skateboard off of my balcony. But I'm really glad that I didn't because I learned from the experience. Now, I do know from my mural work that using spray paint is much faster and easier when it comes to creating gradients. So what we're gonna do next is mask off all of the foreground objects using thick drawing paper and painter's tape. All right, well, it is time for a heart-to-heart. Premature tape pelation can happen to any one of us, and it just happened to me. I was so excited to move on to the next step of the process. I really just didn't pay attention to my spray paint coverage, and I'm just not thrilled with it.
Looking back on it now, I really should have cut in closer on my tape lines and resprayed the gradient before I ripped all that tape off. But hindsight is 20/20.
I'm actually gonna use some automotive pinstriping tape this time. I'm hoping it gives me a little more accuracy, and I went back and I took the time to get my X-Acto knife so I can get crisper cut lines and get closer to my black outlines so you're not seeing little bits of white showing through. And I'm gonna respray my background. I want a really nice even gradient that's gonna move from the top and bottom into the middle where it's gonna be a little bit lighter. And these things happen sometimes when we're like, hey, it's okay if I use that tape, or hey, it's okay if I don't have the right knife. Sometimes it works out okay, but in this case it just didn't for me. So let's do this one last time and hope that we get the results that we're looking for so that we can move on to that satisfying epoxy pour. All right, it's all repainted, and let's cross our fingers and hope that it looks good when we peel the tape off. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it went this time. We had to pause this project for a hot second. I joined the Industrial Maker team about a month ago, and we've had some really exciting stuff going on. We just had 2 huge art YouTubers in town. They also happen to be 2 of my favorite. You can check out my Instagram to learn more about that collaboration and those videos. I learned a ton from those guys, and now I can't wait to get back to working on my art. So let's finish off this deck with one final sand job and a drool-inducing epoxy pour.
In order to get a thick, glossy, candy-like coating with epoxy, I'll do anywhere between 2 and 3 pours, sanding in between so that the following layer will have some texture to grab onto. When you sand your epoxy for the first time, you might have a tiny freak out because it does look terrible with all of the scratches, but rest assured that the final pour will cover all of that up and level out beautifully. And with that, it's time to see the big reveal of this super tasty skate deck. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these decks, I'm leaving a link to my shop below, and the original will be for sale on my website, katliepinsart.com. I had a blast cranking out this longboard with you guys, so if you enjoyed watching, sub, like, bell, you know the drill. And as always, thanks for watching Kat Liepins Art.